I'm so delighted that I get to be with you all here today, and I can't wait to meet you if we haven't met before and figure out your story and just meet you where you're at. It's going to be such a good time today. And today we're beginning a new teaching series called Jesus Gives, which Zach mentioned, and it's going to lead us all the way to Resurrection Sunday, that Easter weekend, with our eyes focused on Jesus, because he gives us so much to be grateful for, and we want to look at all of those things that we can be grateful for. And as Zach said, a lot of times in the church scene, we talk about the way that we respond to God and the invitation that he has to change our lifestyle and to, experience responding to his love and to his faithfulness and all of that sort of stuff. But often we don't stop to appreciate the giver of those gifts and the giver of that experience of salvation and of freedom. And so I thought this is a perfect series to take us into Easter, where we can just pause and put our focus on Jesus. That's cool, hey? Yeah, it's really good. You awake? Yeah, cool, just checking. So there's one moment in Jesus' life which stands out to me, and it's where he's chatting with his disciples, and they're all around, and he's talking about, he just wants to slap that idea out of our heads of that God is the type of God who gives us gotcha gifts. So you know when you get a gotcha gift and it's like, gotcha, there's a string attached to that. Or like, gotcha, there's like, now you got to pay me back. Or like, gotcha, like, oh, there's this like message underneath this gift that, I'm telling you something different. God is not a God like that. And Jesus paints this crazy picture. He's like, you know how to give good gifts to the people that you love. If you have kids and you love them, you're not going to give them like a stone or a rock to eat when they ask for bread. And you're like, cut your teeth on that, kid. Like, good luck. He's like, you wouldn't do that. He's like, you wouldn't, if they ask for a fish, you're not going to give them a snake. And you're like, what? But it's true, right? We know how to give good gifts. And what Jesus is saying when he's talking in this hyperbolic language is just like, hey, if you know how to give good gifts, God is just the same. And God desires to give you good gifts. And Jesus is saying there are gifts there to be had, and you can ask for them. And so the gift that we're going to be talking about all through the gifts that all through this series, I'm praying, and our heart is kind of summed up for our church during this series in a verse from Galatians. Let me read it to you. It says, may what our Master Jesus Christ gives freely, whatever he gives freely, may it be deeply and personally yours, my friends. And that is our heart in this series as we look at all of these good gifts that Jesus longs to give us. May these gifts be deeply and personally yours, my friends. Let's pray. Jesus, we invite you into this space right here. I'm just very aware that this church is like your home. And so would you make yourself at home in our room right now? Holy Spirit, would you come and just presence yourself here with us today? Would you be reframing the way that we look at you if there are ways that we see you that is unhelpful for us? Could you help us to receive the gifts that you so lovingly want to give to us? And may we just enjoy your presence today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. And I love this brand, right? How good is this photo? It's so cool. Our team put that together. Our photography team, our styling team, and the model is Queen, who comes to this church. So everyone say, thanks, Queen. Thanks, Queen. I love this because Queen has these words painted all over her face, and she's gorgeous. She's beautiful. And there's these great things written on her. But what I find so striking about this image is I think about all of the things that life has gifted me, and I wonder what would the words be on my face if all the things that life has put on me were painted on my face like those words are painted on Queen's face. I wonder what it is that would be written there. Like, would the word weirdo be there? Would total legend be there? Maybe anxious would be there. And I wonder what it is that would be written on my face. And this image is, as a visual person, is so confronting for me because it brings this question up in me of like, Jesus, is there unhelpful things that are on me and in me that you would like to take away and replace with a better gift? And that is my prayer for today as we look at the gift of peace. Today we're going to be talking about the gift of peace. You know, when Jesus shares that ridiculous example of giving the kid the bread, the stone instead of bread, and a snake instead of fish, I like it because it shows his sense of humor coming through. And God does have a sense of humor. Like, you think about all the times where Jesus uses ridiculous stories to like get your attention and to drive a point home, and I'm like, you are cheeky. You are on the edge right here of humor. And I have been really feeling that sense of humor as I've prepared for this message called Peace. And the last 2 weeks, while I've been preparing this message, there have been many, many times where I've stopped and said, really, Lord, are you having a joke with me? See, many of you would know, and I've shared openly before, that an ongoing thing that I manage is anxiety, right? So the last few weeks, that has flared up. So I've been needing to like just take more intentional care of my mind and my soul, and I've been doing that. And, that's one aspect where I'm like, wow, why is this happening now when I get to talk about peace? But even this week, right, I'm walking home, and I had every intention on Tuesday to just walk home and like get some pen to paper and sit down at my dining table, got home from work, I'm going to write this message out, get it done, I'll get ahead of the game, all this sort of stuff. And as I'm walking to the front door, my 2 little boys run up to the door and they're like, Mom, check out the dining room. And I'm like, oh no. And so I walk into the dining room, and the ceiling is sagging under the weight of all the storm water on Tuesday. And there's like water coming out of the light fitting and water coming out of the air conditioning vent. There's mud coming down the walls because this is like a little sleep out. It's not very airtight. The whole thing is chaos. It's chaos. There's water everywhere. And I'm like, cool, meant to be talking about peace. Cool. The other day, I was like, really, Jesus? And then the other day we were going to the beach. And I was like, this is nice. I'd had a bit of an anxious afternoon. I was looking forward to going to the beach. And as I'm walking to the car, the kids are already in there. Zach's ready to go. I'm walking to the car. And as I'm walking, I feel something drop on my shirt, down the back of my shirt. And I'm like, and I look up because I'm like, am I under a tree? Like, am I under the house? Like, what is this that's gone under my shirt? And I'm like, okay, keep calm. Keep calm. And so I sit in the car, and I'm like, and with my back, with my little legs hanging out the side of the car and the door open, I'm like, Zach, I feel like something has like gone down the back of my shirt. You know, like maybe it's a stick or a bee or something. And he just looks at me and he's like, babe, get out of the car. It's a lizard. I'm like, ah! I'm like, oh my gosh. I start freaking out because I'm like, where has this lizard come from? It must have like come out of the sky right down the back of my shirt. I'm like, where is it? Like, is it? Oh my gosh. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, jump out of the car, and like Zach's just sitting there in the driver's seat. And I'm like, Zach, can you even help me? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so like he goes to get out of the car, but the car's in reverse, and he hadn't put the brake on, so it starts going backwards, and the kids are losing it, laughing at him. And he's like, ah! So he like puts the brake on, and then he comes back around, and he gets the lizard, and he chucks it in the garden. I tell you what, I love animals. I'm all about the insects. If it was a little bee who like came up, he'd be like, oh, hi, friend, cute. Like, you thought I was a flower. Can I get you some water? Like, can we get you some honey? Whatever. But like lizards, I have no chill. I have zero chill for the lizard. And so I'm sitting there freaking out. And even now I can still kind of feel it. You know, like that sensation, something like warm and heavy and not a stick. Anyway, here I am. God has a sense of humor because I get to speak about peace. And what's so wild, what is so wild is that through my experiences in the last few weeks, whether they're like a little flooded room or whatever, is that I still have peace. Why is that? How can I have peace when all this stuff is going on? In those moments where I'm panicking, how can I have peace? And whether or not you've had a lizard go down the back of your shirt, or like Satan himself go down the back of your shirt, whether you've had like something little like that happen to you this week or not, all of us experience the need for peace at some level, right? Like that is a universal human experience, the need for peace. And even when life is going really well for us, and it can feel like when you're trying to have consistent peace, the peace that sort of sticks around for a long time, it's like you're trying to hold water in your hand, like it just keeps slipping through your fingers. Just the second that you think you have some peace, it's gone. And it can be really, really difficult to find peace, and even looking beyond your own personal experience in life, when you start to consider the people around you and society around you, it becomes immediately apparent how great our need for peace is. You know, in us, it feels like an inner disquiet, or maybe an insecurity. Maybe it's just the deep stresses and strains of life as life goes on. But it extends to creation. I mean, if you consider humanity's interaction with creation, you just get this impression like, oh my gosh, it's so dysfunctional. There's so much going wrong here, and you see the need for peace in our planet. In society, don't we see the need for peace? You know, we see conflict, and we see relational brokenness. We see conflict like between you and I, but then we also see it like on a global scale with people groups. I mean, we see it in domestic violence. Like, haven't we been so aware of that the last couple of weeks here in Australia with the tragedy of what happened to Hannah and her babies? We're so aware of our need for peace. And when these moments happen and you're confronted by the lack of peace, that old Leonard Cohen lyric comes to mind. There's a crack in everything. And how desperately we want to fix that crack. How desperately we want that crack to go, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. And this is how we go about it usually. When we see all of this brokenness and this peace, lack of peace, this is what we do. Because if peace is about sort of gaining a sense of serenity, or about getting rid of the presence of conflict, then, you know, simply packing up all the bad vibes and all the bad people and pushing them away and squashing them out of existence is kinda a great idea, no? And isn't that what we do as humans over the last few millennia? We go to war to get rid of evil. And we incarcerate to separate out the badness from society. And we remove ourselves to try and quarantine ourselves from some of that badness. You know, we tree change, or we go off the grid, or we become self-sufficient. But eventually, we all come to a point where we realize that the problem of peace doesn't just lie with others, but it's also like we are the problem as well. And we are not immune from this lack of peace. Did you see the news report this week? It came out of Queensland. And domestic violence helpline, the helplines over there have noticed like a sharp increase in calls following what happened, tragedy. And they obviously noticed an increase in calls from women, which would be expected. But what I found really remarkable is that there was an increase in calls from men seeking assistance to stop the violence in them before it got out of hand. That level of self-awareness, may we all have that. May we all have that. Alexander, whose surname I can't pronounce, he wrote the Gulag Archipelago decades ago. He said this: if only it were all so simple, if only there were evil people somewhere doing insidiously evil deeds, and it were only necessary to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. If that's all we had to do, wouldn't that be great? But the line dividing good and evil cuts through every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart? You see, we know from experiencing it that there is no straightforward way to peace. There's no quick answer, there's no short road. But what's so weird is it doesn't lessen our craving for it. It doesn't lessen our craving for peace. And so I'm comforted as I read that this problem has extended through all of humanity and all throughout history. Check out what Paul says in Romans 7. He says, I've tried everything and nothing helps. I'm at the end of my rope. Is there no one who can do anything for me? Isn't that the real question? The answer to that question, thank God, is that Jesus Christ can and does. And I'd love to spend our time together talking about how the peace of Jesus Christ, the gift of peace from Jesus, is different to every other type of peace that we've tried before. And I want to talk about that nature of that peace and sort of expand our understanding of that peace so that you can use it and have this gift for yourself today. Because if we only ever see peace as the presence of serenity or as the absence of conflict, it's like seeing waves on the ocean and just like assuming that that's as deep as the ocean gets. I want to encourage you today that there are deeper realities at play. There is a deeper reality that you can engage with other than this up and down nature of peace. The most helpful insight that I have come across that's helped me fathom this understanding of Jesus' gift of peace is that line that Alexander talks about, the crack that Leonard Cohen talks about, is real. It's real. And it runs through all of us. And it runs in us, in each individual, but it runs between us. And this line is not just a stain, it's a fracture. It's a fracture. And this fracture is a result of isolation and independence from God. In the church scene, we call that human propensity to isolate ourselves from God and do our own thing without Him. We call that sin. And it's a state of being. It's so much more than just immoral actions. Sin is this propensity of us to say, no, God, we'll go it alone. No, God, I don't want anything to do with you. No, I want to separate myself from you. And that fracture between God and humanity has an ongoing fracturing effect. It has a fracturing effect then for the relationships between you and I. And it has relationships between people group to people group. There's a fracture there. Even the relationship between us and creation and the planet is fractured as a result of this fracture that has happened between us and God. And it all sounds pretty bleak, doesn't it? How can we fix that? But there is good news. This is why Christians bang on about good news all the time, because we have some. We have some good news. Let me talk to you about this good news of peace from Colossians 1:15 in the Bible. The headline of this little passage is Christ holds it all together, and I love it. He says, we look at this sun and we see the God who cannot be seen. We look at this sun and we see God's original purpose in everything that was created. For everything, absolutely everything, above and below, visible and invisible, rank after rank of angels, everything got started in Him and finds its purpose in Him. He was there before any of it came into existence and holds it all together right up until this moment. And when it comes to the church, He organizes it and holds it together like a head does the body. Us, our Riverview Church, He holds us together like a head does a body. He was supreme in the beginning and leading the resurrection parade. He is supreme at the end. From beginning to end, He's there, towering far above everything and everyone. I love this part. So spacious is He, so roomy, that everything of God finds its proper place in Him without crowding. There is room for all of us in Jesus. Not only that, but get this, all of the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, people and things, animals and atoms get properly fixed and fit together in vibrant harmonies, all because of His death, His blood that poured down from the cross. This is good news. This is good news. It's mighty good news for us personally, and it means that instead of having this constant sense of striving to fix this fracture that we all kind of sense innately and can see so clearly in society, instead of striving to fix that crack and then feeling so inadequate when it comes to the task because we know the fracture runs through all of us as well, we can look to Jesus to bring together all of the fractured parts. That's the good news. How does He do that? How does He get to do what we cannot do? I think it's important to know. Let's take a look at Romans 8 because I think it explains it really, really well. This is how Jesus is able to give us peace. It says God went for the jugular when He sent His own Son. I love that. He didn't deal with the problem as something remote and unimportant. But in His Son, Jesus, He personally took on the human condition. So that fractured nature, He personally took it on and entered the disordered mess of struggling humanity in order to set it right once and for all. The law code, weakened as it was by our fractured human nature, could never have done that. The law always ended up being used as a band-aid on sin instead of the deep healing of it. Imagine like a band-aid trying to fix a broken bone. That's the level of help that our approach is giving us. And now what the law code asked for, but we couldn't deliver, is finally accomplished as we, Instead of like doubling down on our own efforts, simply embrace what the Spirit is doing in us. Here is what that means. Jesus, in his perfection, took on the full brokenness of our separation from God and died. That is the end result of us fracturing ourselves from God. You don't cut a piece off a tree and watch it thrive. It ends up withering and dying. And that is the end result of us fracturing ourselves from God. So God fractured himself to overcome our brokenness, but he didn't just identify with our brokenness. He didn't just empathize with our brokenness. He overcame our brokenness. And it's that power of him saying, yes, I'm going to identify with this brokenness. I'm going to feel the full effect of this fracture and die, and then have the power to be resurrected into a new way of living. That is what qualifies him to be able to be the maker of our peace. He is able to do it, what we could not do. He is both able and he's willing to be our peace. Our fractured nature is brought together in his perfect wholeness. And he's big enough to bring it all together. That's a word for somebody today. You think God could never touch my mess. It's too much. He's big enough. There's room for you. And wonderfully, the peace is not just for the individuals and how they relate to God. It's not just like this one relationship. It's also this relationship and this relationship. Our relationships to one another can be restored and repaired. That fracture can be healed. And it also repairs the relationship that we have for all of creation, which is so, so cool. And it's this wholeness for interrelationships is something I want to touch on. Let's look at Ephesians 4. It says, "For Christ himself has brought peace to us." He's brought peace to us. He united Jews and Gentiles into one people when, in his own body on the cross, he broke down the wall of hostility that separated us. That's so cool, right? There was this wall of hostility and he took it down. He did this by ending the system of the law with its rule and regulations. I love that. He made peace with the Jews and Gentiles by creating in himself one new people from the two groups. He brought this good news of peace to you, Gentiles who were far away from him, and peace to the Jews who were near. I love that. If you're feeling far from God, still peace for you. You feel close to God, still peace for you. The same peace for everyone. Now, all of us can come to the Father through the same Holy Spirit because of what Christ has done for us. So this is the great hope of the Christian faith. This is our great hope. That at a very deep level, all of the fractured parts of us come together into God's hands. It's like he scoops up all of the bits and pieces, and he doesn't just repair the old us, but he remakes us into something completely new. This is our great hope, that the peace that we long for can be found. We're not wishing for something that doesn't exist. Do you remember the story of Jesus on the boat? Oh, he's always on a boat. So which one? When he was on a boat, and and him and his disciples, they were in a storm. There were several of those, but this was the one where the storm waves were coming up over the boat, and Jesus was asleep. Again, I feel like he has a sense of humor. I reckon he was probably faking it. All right, so the waves are coming in over the boat and everybody's freaking out. And the disciples are fishermen. They know what's up. They know this water. They know how dangerous it is. The waves are coming in over the side and they wake Jesus up and they're like, do something. Do you remember what Jesus said in that moment? He got up on the edge of the boat, probably wiped the sleep from his eye, and said, "Peace, be still." It's this beautiful moment where you see the type of peace that Jesus can bring. Because not only did he bring peace to the disciples who were so scared, but he brought a holistic 360 peace to creation. The waves calmed down, the fear calmed down, and they were able to get on with what they were doing. What a beautiful picture of Jesus, bringing his multifaceted peace to a situation. And when I said earlier that I can have all of this stuff going on and still sense peace, this is why. And this is how. You see, the waves of my circumstances, the anxiety, the flooded room, the lizard, that is quite choppy on the surface. Waves going this and that, and up and down, depending on what's happening in my life, depending on what's happening in the atmosphere. But think of the ocean. Are waves, is that as deep as it gets? No. You know, in the ocean that you can have deep currents which travel in a completely opposite direction to what's happening on the surface with the waves. And it's that deep undercurrent that is my peace. The deep undercurrent of my life is peace. And while the words on the surface of my life might look like anxiety or storms, there is a power that is wholly different, and it's so much deeper and so much stronger than the volatile waves of serenity. And I experience both realities, but I know that my God can walk on waves, and I know that he can go deep with me and give me peace. And underneath everything, that peace is steady and strong and secure. And this peace is a gift from God. I couldn't have done it myself. And it's a gift that he wants all of us to have. It's a gift, and you can have it. So let's talk about receiving the gift, because we started our conversation today talking about peace as a gift that you could have. So I want you to know that the intention of God's heart is for you to have that gift today. He would love you to be living in that reality. And we know that he can do it by bringing all of the parts back together. I've sort of taught on that a little bit, but how does it practically work for us? You know, how do we take our everyday life and be carried along by currents of peace? And you know, our heart here is to talk about the real things of God, but then unpack them in a way that can change your life on the daily. And so I want to give you 3 encouragements about how you can accept and receive the gift of peace from Jesus, and then also use it. Does that sound good? Yeah? All right, here we go. This is how you can receive the gift of peace. The first thing that you can do to receive the gift of peace is to become friends with Jesus. He's already a friend with you. You don't need to worry about where you stand with him. So becoming friends with Jesus is the first thing I would suggest when it comes to accepting the gift of peace. The reason for this is that to have the type of peace that we're talking about today that isn't volatile, that's immovable, that's strong, that's secure no matter the circumstances, you don't just need the gift, but you need to know the giver of the gift. And you don't just need to know the giver of the gift because he's generous and then you get the gift and then you don't need to talk to him later. The reason you need to get to know the giver of this gift is because he is our peace. He is the gift. And I want to clarify that for you today, because you can't just get stuff from Jesus. So often he said it's him who is the gift. And I would encourage you, if you don't know Jesus yet, or that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to talk to the friend that you came to church with, or one of us, or the pastors here. Anyone who is a volunteer can help you do this, and talk about what it looks like to follow Jesus, what it looks like to be a friend of Jesus. And that's a great conversation to start, and it's the first starting point if you want peace. The second thing that you can do if you would like some peace today is to presence yourself with Jesus. Presence yourself with Jesus. You see, I've attempted today to refresh your understanding about what peace means and what it looks like and how it can happen. Because if we try and get peace for ourselves, it just looks like cutting out the badness, and then we realize that we are the badness, and it never works out. But Jesus' peace is so different. And this is what I notice we do when we follow Jesus and we need some peace. This is what I do, and I'm sure that you would identify with it as well. We say, Jesus, come over here. I need your help with something. You say, I don't have financial peace. I'm feeling really uneasy about my money. Could you come and fix that with this exact dollar amount? Or we say, Jesus, I don't know what's wrong with her. Could you sort her out? Not that you would ever do that. All right, sometimes we ask Jesus to come into our situation for a specific purpose, and we say, Jesus, I got a problem that you need to fix. He's some sort of handyman. We say, come over here, please, and fix this issue that I have. And Jesus is saying, yes, here is his invitation. His invitation to us is not for him to come on when and where we wish. His invitation is for us to come into his presence and experience peace. Because he is our peace, because it's only in him that all of the fractured parts come together. It's only in him that we have that sense of peace. And so if you want to access this gift of peace today, you need to stop asking God to come and give it and then drop it like an Amazon delivery and then leave. You need to actually come and presence yourself with the source of peace. He is our peace. He is the Prince of Peace. and you presence yourself with him. And then no matter what is going on in your world, whether it's a relational storm or a financial storm, or there's something even bigger at play for you, a crisis, no matter what your storm is, because you are with him, you will have peace. You will have peace. Presence yourself with Jesus. The third thing that we can do, which I think is the most fun, is inviting him wherever you go. Inviting him wherever you go. Now, this is truly the most fun part of having peace, because it's like getting a gift and then being able to share it around. This is so cool, because not only do you get to enjoy peace for yourself, and I enjoy the gift of peace, let me tell you, but you then get to deliver that gift to person after person after person and join God in his work of the restoration of all things. It's really, really cool. And really, God is calling us to make peacemaking our assignment. There is a role for us beyond the receipt of the gift. He says, now go and give it away. And I love this. Let's read in 2 Corinthians to understand this a bit more. He says, the old life is gone, thank goodness, and a new life burgeons. Look at it. All of this comes from the God who settled the relationship between us and him. What's he talking about? Peace. And then called us to settle our relationships with each other. God put the world square with himself through the Messiah is Jesus, giving the world a fresh start by offering forgiveness of sins. And now it says God has given us the task of telling everyone what he's doing. We are Christ's representatives. God uses us to persuade men and women to drop their differences and enter into God's work of making things right between them. We're speaking for Christ himself now. Become a friend with God. He's already a friend with you. And for friends and followers of Jesus, taking the presence of Jesus and his gift of peace into every situation you go, I sort of think about it like this undercurrent. So I can be in a conversation. I was doing it in a coffee shop this week. I'm in this conversation and I'm hearing about where someone's at, and I'm here and I'm looking at the waves and I'm seeing them go up and down. But underneath all that conversation, in my subconscious and in my soul, I'm asking, Jesus, what does your peace look like for her? Jesus, what does your goodness look like for her? Out of this bad situation at work, what does your peace look like? And I would encourage you as peacemakers to be asking those sorts of questions. We are called to read the waves and to acknowledge them and not to invalidate them, but we are called to see them and dive deeper into the currents of his peace. And so asking questions like that, help me, Jesus, to be a non-anxious presence. How can I do that at work? How can I be a presence carrier for you right now? What would your peace look like in this situation? These are good questions that every follower of Jesus can ask in every scenario.